I'm in Western China, navigating a world racing against time. This is the place I'm too familiar with, but yet there are many things I've never experienced before. With memories disappearing daily and culture going with them, I got to capture this before it's too late. There is bustling markets offering traditional meals cooked by hand. There is history spanning 5,000 years, with over 20 dynasties have came and gone, rising and falling. Mountains and rivers nurture the legends of faith and truth, and all those stories echoing above the clouds. In this episode, we left Fengjie and arrived at Wuxi County in the northeastern part of Chongqing. This area is known for its rough terrain and steep mountains. To reach the county, it's inevitable to pass through countless tunnels. Despite the rugged journey, deep in the mountains lies a historic yet abandoned ancient town named Ningchang古镇. Crossing the bridge, we can get into the town, and only on this side of the river there is a road allowing the cars driving through. Getting to the town, crossing the bridge can only be crossed by walking. Now I am stepping to the bridge. This is an iron bridge, and below the bridge there is a river named Hoxi River. Is a branch of the Yangtze River. It'll eventually merge into the Yangtze River. And the town is long but very narrow. It runs north to south direction, in total 3.5 kilometers. On both sides of the riverbanks are cliffs. It looks very dangerous and steep. It's very high. If you are going to live here, you'll face the risk of falling rocks and flash flooding sometimes. As we walked across the ancient iron cable bridge and approached the small town, a sense of antiquity and a hint of desolation came to us. Our first impression was the weathered and dilapidated buildings made of wood and stones, which are scattered at the foot of the mountain. On the ground, there are some broken pieces of wood. Probably because of high mountains and rainy winter here, the town appeared somewhat lonely and isolated. So now I am walking down on the main street of this old town known for making swords. And the road is made of stone. It's not so wide. Look at it. And according to the records, the history of sword production in this town stretches over 4,000 years. And why the sword was produced here? It is because there is a natural source of salt spring flowing down from the mountain and bring the salt. So over time, people who participated in making swords gathered here, and spontaneously a town was formed below the mountain. And in the past, they also established an authority to manage the activities here named Daning, supervised authority. In Song Dynasty around 800 years ago. Daning is the place name here. There is also a river called Daning River, and the river I am walking along named Hoxi River. Hoxi River is a branch of the Daning River, and both of them are the branches of Yangtze River. By the Ming Dynasty, around 600 years ago, this town, has developed into China's top 10 salt making center, and they need to transport the salt to all other places in China at that time. During the era of matrilineal society, tribes were already established in the deep mountains of the three gorges of Yangtze River. And the town was named the Wuxian country in ancient times. Wuxian referred to the wizard here, who held the secrets of salt production. In primitive society, the wizard had a lot of power, just like the human body of the god. In the agricultural era, this place was a paradise because salt was very important to the ancient people. It was endowed with strong religious values and mysticism and also profits. The natural salt springs flowing down from the mountains enabled the people here to have food without farming, to wear clothes without weaving, just to sing and dance every day.
有3.多公里哈，说是。对，你们屋头是重新装修的嘎？
原家屋哈，政府装修的。
哦，你们一直都住在那里啊？
一直住啊。
然后他后头帮留在那里的人装修的。那还是可以，看起不错。那我不打扰你了哈，我先往前头去逛一下。好，拜拜，要得。
So we can imagine how important and prosperous this place used to be. But how it ended up like this, it's because in 1990s, the amount of the salt production began to fall and people were leaving, so the population here began to decline and the houses began to falling apart without maintenance, so it becomes what we see today. And this building is quite dangerous. It's ranked as D class dangerous building by government. The warning signs here says this kind of house is no longer allowed for living. There's even a door beside the stairs. It's so dark inside. I continued to walk on the streets of the town. Even in a rainy day today, the stone path here is not very slippery. And everything I see makes me feel amazed and a bit nervous. Wu Wang Miao. This is a temple before. From the ruins, I could vaguely recognize some traces of past lives. It looks like a meeting hall here, made of wood and stone, and there are some chairs piled up next to the house. There is a very old stairs lead to the river. I think this is the place where they take the water and also wash the clothes. It really looks like the old town in my head. No business here, no tourists, and everything is as it really is. It's full of ancient vibe. Hard to believe there used to be tens of thousands of people living or working here, but now almost all people have gone, only left several residents here, mostly are the elders. Government invest money to help them renovate their house so they can keep living here. With the rise of salt production in other areas and the improvement of industrial salt production techniques, the salt fields here have lost their price advantage. In addition, the high mountains and remote location make it inconvenient for large-scale salt transportation. As a result, the town slowly declined and faded from people's view. Nowadays, the local government has given subsidies to the local residents, such as repairing their houses, so that they can continue to live here. But this town no longer has any supporting facilities, such as hospitals, schools, etc. They need to drive to the new town for this.
The salt spring and where the raw material for making salt comes from. And we can see now this spring is inside this house. It appears to be a wooden house with a lot of the strips, some wooden strips and slats, the bars too, as a supporting frame for the whole structure of this house. The spring would have flowed down from the mountains behind this temple. The wall of this room seemed to be made of stones instead of wood. As we got closer, we see that the salt spring is flowing down from the cracking stones above. And if we get closer to the down below, we could see there's two holes here to divert the salt water into this pool. And also there are a lot of foams in the pool. I think it's because of the salt material in the water and also the force of the water impact from the higher place flowing down to this pool. It's so loud because today is a rainy day, so the water current is large. Following the salt spring water flowing down here, I've noticed some small holes to divert the salt water into these pools. So in the old days, I believe there must have been some pipes to transport the salt water to the other side of the river to the workshop to make salt. Inside this room, I also found some old photos on the walls to record the history and stories happen. Like this one is the picture of the salt production plant, the third workshop for making the salt. And this one records what it looks like of the old town, how it used to look like. Another workshop for making salt. This is the first one. This one records what it looked like when the iron bridge connecting both sides of the river was first built. So before the bridge was built, if the salt water was transported from this side to another side of the river, it needs to be done in a very traditional way, like using the bamboo as a pipe to go to another side of the river. And there's still some other pictures on this wall. Let's go check. Okay, so because this is the main salt making center in the old days, so here gives the maps that where the salt transported to in other places in China. And this is the production flows, how it making the salt.
The salt spring in this town has a salt production history of more than 4,000 years. Ancient people built such a temple above the salt spring, called Longjun Miao, the Dragon King Temple. The temple protects the salt spring, preventing rainwater from eroding the brine. The natural brine flows down from the rocks above, pours out through the dragon's head, being preserved in the pool. The ancestors worshipped the Dragon King, who were in charge of water source, and prayed for his blessing. so that production and transportation could always go smoothly, and the people could always live in this fairyland due to salt. With the natural wealth benefited from salt spring, people gradually began to compete for the brine, leading to constant conflicts in the area. It was not until the Song dynasty in 991 that Da Ning's supervision took charge of the brine pool. He set up a horizontal plate and drilled holes to divert the flow, connecting them with bamboo and distributing the brine to different factories for salt production. In this way, one share corresponded to one responsibility for the brine, making the distribution model the most primitive form of shareholding system. So this must be the place for salt making before the workshop, but it was abandoned already. There's some withered wood on the ground. It seems like there are only some stone pillars left over on the plant and some withered wood on the pillars. Even though this plant was no longer put into operation, but there are still some leftover tools, like there are some big pots, but they are all rusted. You can see that. There are some pots on the stones, but they are all rusted. This hole in the stone stuff must be the place to build fire before, probably for burning wood or coals at that time. For thousands of years, salt spring has been the source of life here, and the traditional salt making process has been the key to huge profits. Beneath the weeds, this used to be a salt making factory covering an area of over 5,000 square meters, serving as the core workshop for salt production in the past. Today, most of the plant buildings have been dilapidated, but through the remaining small parts of stone pillars and withered wood, salt stoves, pots, etc., we can still vaguely recognize what it used to look like, just like the old town. In the past, transportation was underdeveloped, particularly among the rough and steep terrain. To transport salt to other places, people had to carry it out along narrow and dangerous mountains. People have opened a 2,000-kilometer-long salt transportation road on this stone mountain. At the same time, the Asians also opened a 200-kilometer-long waterways for transporting salts. Daning River is an important branch of the middle and upper reaches of the Yangtze River. Thanks to it, salt produced here could be transported to all parts of the country. So, Wuxi County thrived because of salt, and its former glory has declined. The ancient town, amidst the sound of the river and the salt spring waterfall, remains silent, yet makes me feel the weight of life.